So years ago, I was in this auditorium. There was a guy called J. Mark Gilman. He did a breakfast show. I used to love that show. Then there was an opportunity for 150 listeners to come to this auditorium and watch J. Mark Gilman do a live show. It was the biggest thing that has ever happened to me. It happened that day. The first thing that happened that day, they gave away a spot prize valued at 5,000 Rand. I have something similar for one of you worth a lot more than 5,000 Rand. Check under your seat for the number 7. Check under your seats for the number 7. There's nothing. There's nothing. That day I also got nothing. You get nothing. No one gets nothing. I get nothing. You get nothing. Did you look? That's next. I'm not Oprah. There's nothing. But thanks for looking. Thanks for looking. I got nothing that day. But that day I received a special gift, the power of radio. To have sat here and watched the magic on the stage by J. Mark Gilman. It was immense. I do have some prizes though, that I'm going to give away later. I do have prizes. We'll figure that out later. Radio's coming through the monitors here. I'm just giving you guys a heads up. Guys, we have a great day. I'm going to ask you to please stand up, because with most things, especially at Good Hope FM, we start with the South African national anthem. Can we please rise?
Sister Bettina.
Yep. Right, make some noise. There we go. Come on. Come on. Clap your hands. I want some noise from you. I want some noise from you. Come on. Come on. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I think that stunt was probably my last event here. Thank you very much. I think this is probably how I depart. So my name is Stan. I'm the breakfast show host at Good Hope FM. I do the big breakfast show Mondays to Fridays between 6 and 9. I've been on breakfast a couple of years. It's been a journey. And for me to be here today to host this, I want to tell you about my journey. Normal kid with a big dream from Kales River. I wanted two things in life. I wanted to be heard, and I wanted to be heard. So when I grew up, I wanted to be Dmitri Jegels. I wanted to be Dmitri Jegels. Only later in life would another man tell me to not be Dmitri Jegels. He said, I have this idea. It could work for you. Why don't you try to be yourself? Thank you, Natano. That's Natano Brachi there. That's the man that, please stand up. This is Natano Brachi, ladies and gents. This is the man that brought me to commercial radio. Give him a big round of applause. This man's knowledge, this man's sense. He's still actively involved within the SABC with Good Hope FM. And after many, many years, when Natano speaks to me, he speaks to me like I started yesterday. Because the one thing about broadcasting, you never know enough. We're always learning. We're always improvising. We always need to take things to the next level. In Cape Town, radio is so competitive. We have Good Hope FM. What other stations on Cape Town? No, there is another one, man. Is this live stream? Oh, I can't swear. Okay. Something with a K. No. But anyway, it's competitive. It's high energy. Do you understand? But also with radio, we don't know about longevity. So I also have a side business. If you guys would like to support my side business, I sell Herbalife. I can help you look just like me. Okay, I see the attitude here. No, I see the attitude. I've got an amazing panel here, people that need little introduction. And I want to tell you, you're going to meet some amazing people because it is World Radio Day. Radio is alive and well. Radio is here. Radio has been here. It's been 100 years of broadcasting, and we are so, so excited. For those that missed it, we introduced the panel. We have one of the legends of broadcasting here. Jegels, I'm going to head over to you. Dmitri, as the first presenter of color really in commercial white radio, what was your experience like? And more importantly, what was the response from the listeners?
Good morning. Thank you, Stan. When you introduced me, I was expecting you to say from the future of radio to the past of radio, but it was a surreal time, surreal experience. That was deep apartheid, and those wounds never go away. It was strange in a country at the time where we were mostly silenced to suddenly be thrust onto a platform and to be allowed to speak and to be allowed to be heard. But I had to be very careful as to how I got the message across. I would, for instance, be standing in Paro, emceeing an event where the new National Hotel is being opened, and the Minister of Law and Order, Adrian Vlok, is present, and the Minister of Defense at the time, Magnus Malan, and one wrong word and I disappear. However, something was happening in the country and they were allowing me to speak, and the response was amazing from the listeners. However, not all our voices were heard, and it was a mediated one. Obviously, all news, all radio is mediated. But it was only the certain kind of voice, the certain idiolect, the certain accent. And I happened to actually have something that was acceptable at the time. So something that approximated received pronunciation and standaard Afrikaans. Jy sou nie daardie daar Kaaps hoor nie. And so today, the world is very different, but the principles of radio do remain the same. Thanks.
Thanks, Timmy. Celeste, if we can move over to you. So Celeste does retail, community, she's active in commercial, top-notch MC. Just in terms of your experience working on community and retail radio stations to a commercial station, what differences are there? What has the journey been like from retail to community to commercial?
Thank you, Stan. Yeah, so I started off at community/campus radio station, MFM, that's in Stellenbosch. A lot of the big names were trained there today, which I think is really cool. And as Priya said, but also like Dmitri said, a lot of the things are exactly the same. But I always explain it to a lot of people asking that campus radio, community radio, to me was you starting primary school. You learn everything and you apply things there, but on a smaller scale, right? And you also at primary school think you know everything. And I did think I know everything, or I knew everything. And then I came to commercial, and though the principles remained the same, I had to adapt to a bigger audience, a variety. So I was taught to put on my mic and how to speak on the mic, right, in community radio. And then I came to commercial, and it was just now speaking with more value, understanding what I say more intensely. So I almost want to say it's from going to primary school and then heading into university.
Thank you so much. Award-winning producer, Delucia Daniels. Delucia, obviously, you're passionate. We see the passion. I work closely with you. You work on the show behind me. Just for yourself, what goes into producing a show and creating, I think what is important here is quality content, because everything we do is about content. It's content-driven, whether it be socials, online, on air, everything is content-driven. What goes in it?
I think there are a lot of different ways to look at content. we all have access to phones, so when you're scrolling through Instagram, through TikTok, that is content. The way then, as a producer, is how do we translate something that is visual to on air? Because we all can see things. So it's then me thinking, oh, I'm sitting on a stage right now. Content is what? Oh, I had stage fright when I was 6 years old, singing a Whitney Houston song. That was the first and last time I ever had stage fright. Surely someone else has had that experience. You need to make content relatable, and you need to make it seem as if everybody has gone through the same things. Everyone loves talking about their pets. We all show unsolicited photos of our pets to our colleagues, to our friends. How do we bring those angles into radio to make it sound like we are talking directly to you? And I think with content, it's quite an interesting thing because you have to kind of plan out. Planning is everything. That's the first thing. And the second thing is trying to find a mixture of content that is A, water cooler content. I come to work and I heard this joke on the radio. I come back and I'm like, hey, Priya, did you hear this joke? I translate it to Priya. That's when you know you have great content. Combining that with digital and being like, oh, they made this new video on Good Hope FM. Have a look. This is Stan and his team dancing. That's also how you create viral content. So while in the olden days, used to think of, okay, story time on Good Hope FM is at 7 p.m. Everybody has to listen. It's not like that anymore, which is more exciting. If you missed it at 7 p.m., you can go on Instagram. 5 minutes later, everything's going to be there for you. So now we're having to think of digital content as well, and I think that's way more exciting to incorporate into the radio space, to have it two-dimensional and not just being talking into the mic.
Thank you, Delucia. Obviously, with what we do as well, there's many things we've learned from being content creators, from being on-air radio personalities. There's a lot we learn. There's so much we learn. I can identify certain things. There's certain things that normal people can't identify, but that's my talent. I'll show you. I can identify people that suffer from depression. Do you want to see? Show you. This is the depression sufferers. Who here supports Manchester United? You can give me a round of applause. That was actually quiet. Thank you. Natano. Thank you. My contract won't be renewed. Priya, just back to you, having a bit of fun. Our panel are here today. It's people that have been in the broadcasting space, of course, communication director for City of Cape Town. Priya, some of the most memorable moments for you as a Good Hope FM presenter. Also, how did you prep for shows? Did you do something? Did you just come in? Did you wing it? What was the prep like?
We might not have used words like content creator back then, but we were doing it long before, okay? And actually listening to Delucia now, who's obviously at the cutting edge and a little bit younger than me, it actually was very much the same, We didn't have all that information at our fingertips. And if we wanted to know who our listeners were, we had to go out there and do research. Now, you have them right there. You can look at what they do, how they move in the world, what they care about. And, that's amazing to have. But, yeah, it comes with, sometimes you can make yourself too familiar and know people too well. So that can be a double-edged sword. But you were asking about my best memory. So when I came to Good Hope, I had recently moved to Cape Town, having only been here once before in my life. And it seemed a very cool city. And I felt out of place in such a cool space. And then I was in such a cool radio station full of very cool people. And I remember Brendan Fix, who was my station manager, reminding me years later how when I started I used to do my news bulletin and then go and sit in the little courtyard with a book and read until I had to collect my next bulletin, because I didn't realize it had to be like a whole, you talk to people and you engage on air. I'm paid to do the news and go read my book, come back again, and I was quite a nerd. And then I met people, and I met an amazing group of men and women who became my tribe in many ways. I didn't have many friends here because I just moved. I didn't have a lot of family, and these people became like my family for many, many years. And Good Hope gave me an opportunity to see this province, go to places and be seen in ways I wouldn't have otherwise. I remember interviewing Charlize Theron once just after she won the Oscar for Monster, and she told me she was a size 36. And I was like, shoo, That's great, because I was having some issues around my size at that point. Now I've learned to just live with it. There've been a lot of memorable issues interviewing people like Snoop Dogg and going to, traveling all over the country, all over the province. But most importantly and most memorable for me were the people that I met along the way, because they really were, the sounding board. They taught me so much, and it was a very, very special time in my life that prepared me personally and professionally for the next chapter.
Fantastic, thank you. Priya, that was amazing. I mean, this is how we learn. Who would have thought Charlize Theron and myself were the same size? It's amazing, great. Demi, back to you, Dmitri Jegels. Dmitri, obviously now as a lecturer and educating students, how are you using your radio experience to combine with your current role as lecturer, educator?
I just need to correct you. They told me I'm too old to teach now. I turned 65, so I've just retired. But it's the same thing. When COVID hit, experience in radio helped a lot. So I would pre-record lectures. I would make podcasts, as you guys do now, and upload videos, upload voice-recorded lectures, and so forth. So it did help to not be taught that. All my colleagues needed to be taught that. We spent 3 months being upskilled. And so what I did in that time was have that knowledge just refined and apply it into the radio environment. And so when it comes to using radio, to prepare for a show, there's a lot of preparation that goes into it. People think, oh, what a lovely life. You spend 3 hours on air, but they don't know about the hours of preparation before, the debriefing after, and then preparation for the next show, and it doesn't stop. And your life doesn't, you don't stop being an announcer because the people don't allow it, the listeners don't allow it. Just luckily that you're not as recognizable as the TV people and so forth. But nowadays, the podcasters have their faces on the internet, so they get recognized. But the principles of critical thinking, you need to be able to think critically when you're sitting there on air. You're facing people, you're coming across people from all walks of life, and you need to be able to engage them. So you need to be well read. And these are the kinds of things that I try and over to the students, because once they go into the marketplace, they're not going to be sitting in a corner somewhere. They'll be dealing with colleagues, they'll be dealing with customers and so forth, and they need to be able to communicate the product or their findings or whatever. And so that's also important. So they need to be able to get that across too. Thanks.
Thank you, Demi. Celeste, over to you quickly. Celeste, the importance of radio for the community, working in retail and campus radio. So for most of us, campus radio is where we started, community radio is where we started. How do we merge that in terms of importance? What would you say?
Listen, so I always say this, campus radio / community radio in itself is important, as well as retail radio and as well as commercial radio. And let me explain why. So when we say retail radio, just to explain that, it's what you listen to when you walk inside of Ackermans, right? Have you listened to the radio inside of Ackermans, or you hear there's music playing in the background, there's music playing inside of Clicks Radio, and who else is in Cape Town? Pep Radio is in Cape Town, right? And what we do there is what we call closed circuit radio. So it's only once you're in store that you can hear that, and what I do there is I literally tell you what is on sale. And so that is very important because it is very immediate. Like you're walking around and then suddenly you hear the panties are on sale, right? And then you merge to the panty aisle, or you hear the baby clothes are on sale and you merge to that. But I think what else is cool on retail radio is in the morning, there's a breakfast show. It's very short, it's an hour and a half. But what we do on that show is it's created for the staff only, and all retail radio stations have this. It's created for the staff only. And we connect, there's a direct line between the staff in-store, so in-store staff, at Ackermans we call them Pademas, and to the CEO, which otherwise, when would have that happened, right? If you're working in store, you're a manager, when are you ever going to talk to the CEO of Ackermans. And so we let him come in, we let him sit there, we open up the lights literally, and any one of the staff members can call in at any time and they can ask him. Literally one day, just not too long ago, one of the staff members said, listen, we don't have hangers. And I went, what is the CEO gonna do about it? And he made a plan, which I think is cool. There's such a connection. And then when I move over to community radio, because your specific community, when I speak about community radio as an MFM, I speak specifically about Stellenbosch, right? And because the community of Stellenbosch is so small, there's such a connection amongst the people. It's funny when I meet people and they go, oh, do you know so-and-so from Stellenbosch? And some people would go, why? But then I do know them because it literally is that small. And the importance of that is the story that I always refer to. I had a feature on community radio called Heart Matters, right? Which was hard matters to talk about, but also matters from your heart. And we put this lady on air. She was looking for a sister, right? She had heard once her father passed away that there was a sister. She was already in her 50s. And because the community, everyone knows someone, Stan knows Priya, and Priya knows this one, and Johan, and whatever, somehow word of mouth it traveled, and she found her sister after 55 or so years. So what I am trying to say is there's such an importance in each spheres of the radio, and you can't I can't put a lady on air to find her sister on Ackermans, you understand? But each sphere of radio has such an important part of it, and the basis of it all is connecting people.
Thank you very much. Delucia, the importance of learning radio skills?
It's interesting because my journey, I had 0 skills when I started. I was 16. I would come here in my school uniform and I would just sit in the studio. I had gotten a job shadowing opportunity for my grade 11 project, and I met Danilo Quisto, who does the Hit 30 chart show, and we instantly connected. I'd never met him before, and it took months of emailing. I never stopped, and a chance meeting brought us together when we had a high school jam and he was the MC. And yeah, I did stalk him a little bit. And funny enough, to this day, the two of us are literally like brother and sister with 2 peas in a pod. And I'd come here every single day. I would sit in Grant Leisher's office, our music compiler, for hours on end. And my poor parents, shame, they would wait in the car for me, but I knew that this is where I wanted to be. I'd almost directed my line of what I wanted to do from going to university, and I took a gap year and I started working here for a while. I'm 24 now, so I've been here for 6 years, 2 years illegally, but I was here and I enjoyed every moment of it. Every single skill I learned has been in this room. It's been also through my best friends, YouTube, that one. YouTube has been my best friend in this industry because I never had a direct producer to mentor me on how to produce really good radio. It took me listening to a lot of international stations, a lot of local stations to figure out, oh, that's really good content. I think the most important part about being a radio presenter or producer is being able to be adaptable. Like Dmitri said, we work with so many people, you meet so many people all the time. You need to be able to, all of a sudden there's breaking news, change your content. You need to be able to adapt very quickly. Okay, Aretha Franklin, I remember I was working with Nigel Pearce at the time and we were doing Afternoon Drive. And it was just before our 5 o'clock bulletin, and the news that just broke, Aretha Franklin had passed away. And we had to change our entire 5 o'clock hour, literally within 30 seconds. A little 18-year-old girl working with a big team had to change the entire content of the show. You learn very quickly how to adapt. You need to be able to be a problem solver. You can't freeze when things switch off at all. If you freeze when things switch off, it's not going to help anyone. And you only learn that the hard way when once all the lights did go off on the desk, there was no computer, nothing was running, and the first thing you have to do is call standby. At least the numbers on the board, so you don't freeze, so you see it all the time. But you need to kind of learn to go with the flow and let things happen. Because at the end of the day, you are in control of your own show. And what you say and what your presenters do, where I am on my role, is I need to also maintain my contributors and my presenter. So if Dmitri says to me, I want to interview Dua Lipa today, I have to make it happen at whatever cost. So when you talk about radio skills, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just being, an extrovert. You'll find that 99% of people at Good Hope FM are actually really introverted. We like to be alone. We like to be in our houses. We like to be with our partners. And coming here is almost like we're expelling our energy. We love what we do every single day, but we also are quite timid. So just trying to find that narrative of how to communicate effectively with people and with our colleagues and learning how to adapt in that space is very, very important to create really good radio.
Just to confirm, if anything goes wrong, who do you phone? That's how good I am. Stan. How shocked am I now to discover you're 24?
Yeah, only 24.
You're like 2 years younger than me. Anyway, moving over to... Jaiva's lad, you can't speak. No. Priya, back to you. Priya, obviously now things have changed. We live in a different space. I mean, things have developed. I grew up in an era where we'd read in the newspaper that a certain radio presenter would be at a club. We would queue for hours just to see what that person looks like, right? And then we'd be shocked. You queue for hours, and this guy stick out, way out. It's like, what is this? Is there some mistake here? But that is the power of radio. We trick you, we fool you, we engage you. Good Hope FM, Cape Town's original. Then I stick out, oh, where's the kids be? Hallo julle. Hoe stinge? How's things? Johan, don't fire me, please. I'm having so much fun here. Priya, obviously social media. How different were things in your years in radio? Because that was pre-Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Insta. Yeah.
So how old do you think I am?
I'm good with this. I'm good with this.
Hey, careful.
No, I'm good with this.
Careful.
You don't look a day over 25.
Oh, it's a little bit older. No, Facebook was there. It was starting off when I was when I was on Good Hope. It was different. It was a different time. Social media is the good things, the best things about social media, also the worst things about social media. It allows you to connect with people and have a dialogue with people. You were talking about how you would come the next day and they wouldn't know what you look like, and that there's so much familiarity now. They know where you were last night, what you ate, which restaurant you went to, which friends you had, who you had a fight with, what's upsetting you. It's just everything's out there, everything's recorded, and that can make it good in many ways, that you have such an intimate relationship with your listeners, and vice versa, because it really is a dialogue that you can have now. You can keep a real dialogue going with people, which you couldn't do before. But on the other hand, it's an infodemic in many ways. There's so much information out there, and how do you filter that information to make it exciting, to make it relevant, to make it something that people want to listen to? And then how also do you filter out what is fake news or disinformation from what's real information? As a presenter on radio, you have a really important job, and it's more difficult now. There was always fake news, you'd always hear that somebody had died or whatever, but it never went viral like it does now. So you can lose control of it so quickly, and that's quite scary. And also, if you make a faux pas of any kind, it used to be a story for a couple of days, or your colleagues would laugh about it. Now someone's done a video of it, and it's viral and all over the place. And for the rest of your life, you could follow you around. I don't mean to scare you, but I mean, it's scary times, and we weren't as scrutinized then as we were now. And that was a good thing. But on the other hand, like I said, we didn't have the same intuition. We didn't have the same relationship with our listeners like you can have now, where they really feel like they do genuinely know you and you can know them. So that's quite special, yeah.
Thank you, Priya. Demi, over to you. The importance to connect with the community and using radio to educate the community. Is it possible, though?
Before I get there, I just want to relate a story. What I was reminded by Delucia. I'm actually a bit of an introvert myself, and people used to be very disappointed when they met me. You're so vibrant on radio, but I'm an observer. I want to observe life, and then that's when it comes out on air. But anyway, I had a visitor in the studio, like you were. I had my fair share of those, and then it was a Friday afternoon, and she lived in Elsie's River or something, and I said, no, you can't take the bus now. I'll take you home, and I took her home. She knocked on the door and said, Ma, this no Dmitri. Mom, this is Dmitri. Mom gave me one look and said, "Die waarheid bots met die droom." The truth clashes with the dream. So obviously, I've got a face for radio. so when it comes to, sorry, Stan, I've lost the question now.
So have I. Sorry.
I needed to tell that story though.
No, it's good.
So how to educate community? It's very important. Radio is still the most viable way of getting across to information, to news. COVID reminded us of that, and nowadays with outages and so forth, you don't have television. Your clock, your tower is down, and there's no radio, there's no cell phone signal. But all you need is your hand cranked radio, and you can get that message to the far most outlying area, to Alali, somewhere in Matloseni. You can get that message across. So it is extremely important. There are in a time in an emergency. I remember, I don't know if you still do it here, but we used to have a drill in case there's a nuclear accident at Coburg. And we have a folder in the studio. I don't know if it's still the case, but that's the folder that you go to, and this is what you say to the listeners, to anybody who manages to listen to you, what the steps are that you must take in this emergency. When it comes to when we had to do education around AIDS, when AIDS was a massive thing in the 80s, and we had to get across that it's not transmissible by a shake of a hand. AIDS patients were pariahs at the time, and we had to get people to see that, no, these are people living with AIDS, but you don't treat them as complete outcasts. So that sort of thing. Radio is very, very good at getting that kind of message across. Thanks.
Thank you, Demi. Celeste, over to you. How do you stay relevant on your show?
Okay, so very difficult, because obviously relevance is something that changes literally as we evolve as people, like literally every second. Did you have influencers in your day? As we know them today.
One called influencer.
Right, so now we have influencers. You were the influencers, but now we have something, I think that is the most relevant thing for the last couple of years, is influencers on social media, and especially with the rise of TikTok, that is what everyone's doing. Everyone is consuming TikTok the entire time. And if I talk about Cape Town specifically, there's a couple of people that have made big names for themselves. And so how do, we can look at them as radio presenters and go, or whatever, because of course they've received a lot of criticism as well. But what I've done instead on my show is I've got a feature called Like, Follow, Subscribe, where I profile these people, right? A lot of time, they people on a screen, and a lot of them are also introverts. It doesn't necessarily translate what you see on TikTok when you see them as well. So a lot of them are dancers, and what else do they do? Singers, whatever. And so what I do is I get them on the show for Like, Follow, Subscribe, and I ask them the questions that you don't necessarily get the answers to by just watching them on TikTok, right? The same goes for artists, right? So when we interview artists, you're going to hear the same questions probably that they've answered during the same media tour. There were 3 other radio stations down the road. They were just on TV, so they're asking the same questions. And so what I try to do on my show is ask the questions that we really don't know about, that we most likely won't hear about. So I'm going to ask you, Dmitri, who you went to your matric ball with.
You want to know from me?
Yeah.
Oh, which one?
You go to 2 matric balls. How many times were you matric?
I took, I forget whom.
You're lying, but okay.
But hang on, when I came to Cape Town, so I grew up all around the country, and I went to a matric ball when I was in Standard 8. Schoolgirl invited me, yeah. But in Cape Town, I went to 2. I was asked by 2 ladies.
Oh, you're popular.
Sorry.
Mr. Jegels. All right,
I had it then, you know.
These are the type of things I want to ask, because where are you going to read that? You're going to know where Dmitri started his career because he's answered that in 3 news articles online and at the radio stations, but you don't know where you went to the matric ball with. So I try and search for questions, or I'll call up Dmitri's son over there in the audience. I don't know if he wants to be pointed out, and phone him up and ask questions about his dad. And then when we have the interview, I'm like, hey, so, and then I'll spill the beans or whatever. So we try to be relevant that way.
How I met my wife.
So for those people who might think that Dmitri's memory is fading about the matric balls, his wife is here, so obviously the memory. I don't think, what is a matric ball? It happens, it happens. Thank you, Celeste. Delucia, entertaining your listeners through radio is important. How do you make sure, though, and this is the tricky one, that you captivate your audience?
It is very tricky, like you said, and I think every single day you have to take it as it comes, because you don't actually know what's going to hit with your listeners. We could be having a conversation between the 4 of us on stage and it could automatically hit. Meanwhile, you prepared a question that you want to ask listeners for the day, for example, and nobody responds. So at that point, it's like, is it because I didn't execute it well? Because your execution is actually way more important than your content. Because I can tell you a great story, but if the punchline isn't right, you're not going to laugh, or you're not going to feel something. So when we are producers or presenters, newsreaders, all the people on air, when we think about entertaining and keeping someone there, the whole show has to be a story, a continuous story that is changing. It's like reading a different chapter. So for the first hour, you're going to do something else. And you also have to trial and error. Some days it's really not going to work. And you're going to leave and be like, that was actually not a great show. And you reevaluate, you debrief, you talk to your team. What can we do better tomorrow? Because like Stan said in the very beginning, you can learn something new in radio every single day. If you're not learning, you're doing something very wrong. Because every single time I step behind the mic, I'm still nervous, and I still get excited to talk, but it's also how you say things that's going to keep someone there. They're waiting to hear what you have to say, and if it's something that they can take home with them. So when it comes to keeping people entertained, yes, you can make someone laugh, but it's important to take them on an emotional journey with them. If it's by telling a beautiful story. On our show, we have something called Warrior Woman, where we highlight women of all walks of life. We had, for example, the first person who became a gin master, the first woman who became a gin master in the world. And she had gone from being a doctor, dropped out of university, decided to be a bartender, and then decided to pursue a career as a scientist and got her PhD in gin mastery. I mean, guys, that is something unheard of. And by telling those stories, you're allowing people to also get into someone else's world, interesting somebody else in something that they would never have heard of in their life. And I think it's very important for us to be able to convey these messages in very effective ways, but also to make you laugh a little and to also keep you glued to your seat, because at the end of the day, that's our job. So.
Give our panels, please, a big round of applause. Ladies and gents, I give you Priya, Dmitri, Celeste, and Delucia. Are there any questions from any of you? Any questions? Anyone have a question? What is your name? Hello, Renee. Talk to me. For Celeste. Renee, we're going to give you a microphone quickly.
Renee from Juno Media. So you obviously go live on your show as well. How do you stay focused with your listeners versus a comment you've seen from a TikTok, for instance, because that can throw anybody off?
Thank you, Renee. So if that is 2 things happening at once, right? But if you're in studio, there's like 500 things happening at once already. So just as an example, if you're in a team, all right? I'm not in a team, I am my team. But if you're in a team, there's an anchor, there's a sports reader, a news reader, a producer, right? The producer is speaking to you the entire time, right? So Delucia is in a green room, and I am on air, Renee is on the phone, right? Or I'm talking, I'm going, we got a winner for this in this competition, and Delucia is saying in my ear, Renee is on air, on the line for you, and then I have to go to Renee, but I also have to watch the clock to see, because coming up in the next 10 seconds is sports, right? And it sounds complicated, but for people that are in the audience, if you're a mom, and even if you're a dad, but mostly if you're a mom, you also didn't know, and it also sounded complicated. But once you do it and practice it and practice it, it becomes natural, right? So I would never ever go live on TikTok in studio did I not know how to do my show. I say knowing your desk, so knowing which buttons to press and what is where. You're so technical, right? That's like the backbone of knowing your stuff. Never mind what you're going to speak about and the actual content for the day. But if you know that, you can throw anything at me content-wise because I know what to do with my hands. Even the other way around, if you know content, what you're going to do out of like the top of your head, then something can go wrong and I can fix it. But again, as anything else, as being a mom, as being a parent, the more you practice it, the more you can do things. If you have A down, you can add B. And when you have A and B down, you can add C. I hope that answers your question.
Any other questions? Any questions for anyone on our panel? Grant? No, please don't. What is your name?
Hi, my name's Danielle from SABC.
Hi, Danielle.
My question is for Dmitri and Priya. I'm an account executive at SABC. I love selling outside broadcast. The reasons why I sell it is that you bring the radio personality or the station to the people, to the client. And that's when client can actually engage with the presenters and engage. How was outside broadcast back in the days when you guys did it?
So I've got two stories for you. So outside broadcasts are great because you are at the event, the listeners are there, the thing that's supposed to happen is happening. For instance, the Good Hope 100. I don't think that's happening anymore. Or Sekabossi, we put a caravan on Sekabossi with the cycle tour, right? And then you see all the runners coming past and you comment and so forth. But I did a show once when we were just the Cape Province, so the Cape Province was massive, and it went from Uppington, Kokenab to border of Free State to the border of KwaZulu, was it? Yeah, and so to Port Elizabeth, and we had an outside broadcast there, where we were taking the caravan, that's the outside broadcast unit. And it was the steam train run, so an athlete versus a steam train. And it was also some sort of festival as well. So firstly, this is deep apartheid, and I get there, but before I got there, I'm sitting in the back seat, and the caravan is behind us, and then something happened, and the caravan flipped. And I found myself sort of suspended in the air. We had to wait for, luckily nothing happened to us, but the caravan was destroyed. That's hundreds of thousand rands worth of equipment gone. So we had to wait for a trailer with backup equipment, and then off we went to Port Elizabeth, got there, and I was then an honorary person in a hotel where, what was I? Honorary white or something, I got to stay in this hotel. These were the sorts of things that happened then. But what for me was very strange was that there was like, wow, I'm just one of everybody. It was like a throw forward to the new South Africa, and I was so well received. And there I sat at a desk outside, and the technicians are great. These technicians, the guy sitting over there, Koskakul, yo, excellent. Without them, we don't sound, we don't have this lovely timbre that you hear in the voice and all that, They make me sound so good, and they can make you sound bad too, But they had to sit there and set up that, because everything was set up in the outside broadcast unit. They had to do that from scratch, and we went on air on time. So that's the one story I wanted to tell. I've got another story if you Okay, have you ever heard of Judy Boucher? Right, so what's that song again? I got a... Can't be with you tonight. When people meet me and they find out I'm the one that played the song, and then they get very upset with me because... But I've got this little plaque in my lounge, a platinum thing, saying thank you for playing the song and so forth. But so we were at the opening of the hypermarket, and part of the marketing strategy was to get this artist, and Good Hope FM had the artist in the caravan, the outside broadcast unit again. So their Ottery hypermarket, 5,000 people attending, 5,000 people, and they all want a piece of Judy Boucher. They started jumping on the caravan. The caravan got destroyed. We ran for our lives. Well, we drove off through the crowd. We had to abandon the OB. It was scary. We were scared for our lives. Poor Judy Boucher. So that's just two stories for you, what it was like. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That normally happens to me when I leave home as well. What? Do you want to add something, Priya?
No, just very quickly to say that and now I'm on the other side, looking at the outside broadcast when the city hires Good Hope to do an outside broadcast, and it's amazing because people feel like they know you, and I think it's still like that, and you get to meet people face to face that already feel like they know so much about you, and there's such a buzz around it, and to be in the center of a big event or the center of something in the city as an outside broadcast, it gives it such credibility, and I think it's really good both ways. It's good for the audience to have all of you come and see you face to face and do the pictures, and I think it does help to make radio even closer to your audience, and that's what it's all about. The closer you are, the more they want to loyally listen to you. But it's also good from the perspective of the radio station, just to be super relevant to what is happening in your space and in your city. So, I mean, it is different, looking at it from different perspectives, but I think the excitement and the thrill of it and the sense that it makes to do things like that still remains.
So I'm going to, Priya just reminded me of something now. That's when the listeners get to see you. In those days, they didn't know what we looked like. So at an OB, outside broadcast, then listeners see what you look like. And so I'm going to embarrass you now, Lakota. That's Dakota over there with the long hair. So he was little, he was like 7, and we're walking down the road, and some listener recognized me and comes over and, "Hi, Dmitri." And so I carry on, hi, and everything, and off we go. And then he says, "Daddy, who was that?" I said, "I don't know, my son." Said, "How God you know that?" He used to get upset with me. Sorry, Lakota.
Thank you, Daniel. Do you have any further questions? Thank you, Daniel. Daniel is one of my favorite people at the SABC. Get along like a house on fire. Any other questions for any of our panelists? Mike, okay, let's go to the lady quickly, then we'll go to you, sir.
Sorry, it's Juanita from Juno Mina. Delusha, I've got a question for you. So, radio as a medium right now, where we're heading and where the culture is at this current moment, what would you say as Good Hope FM, as a radio station, what is the best way to keep listeners, clients, products engaged, to get customers and people listening to engage with that? What would you say? How would you do that? How would you as a station, given where we are now, engage the youth where we're going? Because technically they are the next Dmitri Jegels and the Priyas of the world. How would you answer that?
I think the main thing is to start by being present in the youth. Because a lot of the time, yes, we talk to people, but we don't see people very often. Take us out, let us do our thing, but also allow us to really interact with them and talk to people. Because that's actually how you sell. You look at someone, you're like, oh, that person's quite interesting, but they don't know your story. They don't know where you come from. They don't know your talents. And by engaging with them in that way, it's kind of like you're building this house. You start with the foundation. It's always easier to start by having a conversation. And then when you incorporate other elements into it, it becomes a lot easier to kind of grow together. Sometimes it's not going to work, and that's okay, because there's always a solution to every problem. That is something I've learned in radio for the last 6 years. There is always a solution. And I think as Good Up FM, we've recently rebranded, and I think a big part of that is incorporating the youth more in what we do, and to also be present in their events in their life. When we went to our first day of college or university, we would see all these big radio stations there. It's very rare that you see that happening in this day and age. And I think it's important for us to be there, be present, communicate with them, and also offer more opportunities to get in. I didn't get here by just, hi, I would like to work here. I sat here every single day. And I was quite a nuisance, if I'm being honest. And I had to learn the hard way that sometimes it's the persistence that gets you. And the youth of today, yes, we've got our phones, and yes, we can create viral content, and it will work for some and not work for others. Or maybe Priya will be the hit of the month, and then Dmitri. But in radio, I think there's also something saying in being consistent. And that's also in our branding and how we talk about Good Hope FM. It comes down to presenters pulling up their weight and saying, we are Good Hope FM. This is who we are. We're Cape Town's original. And bringing that into our personal brand as well, because we're all different. We all have different niches. I like Formula One. Celeste likes to, sit at home and have a good juice. We're all different. So she does have a good juice. She'll come to my house and only drink Ora. So we become very close with one another, and we don't also show that side of us enough. I think, yes, there's a familiarity in what we post on social media, but also half of those things are not really real. We're probably taking a picture of someone else's plate, to be honest. We're not eating boerewors and chips.
I don't have that problem.
But I think it's very, very to bring a brand into effect is to be the brand. You can't just be like, oh, I like Good Hope FM. Show me you like Good Hope FM. Prove it to me, and then I'll believe you. So it's about little things like that. By incorporating that into the world, I have no doubt the future will be Good Hope FM.
Thank you very much. This is the final question. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, sir. Mic on?
Hi, I'm
There we go.
Kante from Group M. My question is quite a bit very short. We've had the followers of Priya and Dmitri on the past, and then bringing on being loyal on the Good Hope station. We now got the future generation, the Gen Zs, and how they consume their content, and their behavior is quite different from the previous followers or listeners, as to say. So now, how did we integrate these two listeners in Good Hope FM to keep loyalty as well as encouraging and keeping those that are upcoming captive to the station or loyal to the station as well? Priya mentioned something earlier about story time at 7. We capture those captive audience. We're there listening at 7 o'clock, but now we go on social media and stuff. So those are two different audiences, but do we lose those old audiences, or how do we keep them relevant at this current moment?
Well, listen, it's a hit or a miss. That's it. It's a hit or a miss. You can't guarantee that you'll gain every Gen Z, right? And that's why we try and create these features specifically so for them. So when I say I have a feature for influencers, that is not created for anyone over 40, right? It is specifically so created for Gen Z. I think what is important, and I wanted to say this to you as well earlier, is that oftentimes what we do is we assume what Gen Z likes, where we should let Gen Z dictate the conversation, lead the conversation. So I always say this, radio is about living with your ear on the ground. It's about knowing a little bit about a lot, right? So when I walk into a conversation with you, with a lawyer, with a soccer player, I should be able to add in all of those conversations. And so that way I feel about, I don't have anything in common with my Gen Z little cousins, but I do sit there. I do sit there and I consume and I listen. And I think parents do that. They consume and they listen so that we literally for real know what is relevant to you and how am I going to get you here. If I know what you like, I can get you here.
Thank you, Demi. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah, I think just to remember the basic principle. It doesn't matter whether you're in the swamps of Limpopo or you're on the mountainous region of KwaZulu, Drakensberg, or in the Valley of Desolation, Nemakuseni, or in the dusty dales of the central Karoo, or on the top of Table Mountain, or whether you be at the tip of Cape Point, radio will remain instant, immediate, and intimate. Remember that.
Thank you so much. So it's time for our panel to join the rest of you, but we need to send them off to join you guys. But we need screaming, shouting, energy. All right? So we're going to practice. You're going to do for me, rat-a-ta-ta. Yeah. Who asked you? Rat-a-ta-ta. Bow, 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 bow. Oh, Gen Z. Ladies and gents, big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. You guys can please get off the stage. Thank you very much. You guys have been awesome. They've been amazing. Don't move. There's so much more happening. I'm handing over to a colleague of mine at Addis here. His name is Franrico. He's going to take over the stage for a few minutes. I'll be back over the next couple of minutes as well. It's been instrumental. It's been emotional to have the icons here. Ladies and gents, we're celebrating World Radio Day, 100 years of broadcasting. It is absolutely phenomenal. We thank you for your time.